Hillary has been lengthening her excuses as to why she lost the election. She didn't really lose the election. It was stolen from her by, I think it's up to 24 different excuses she has now. Number 24 is content farms in Macedonia. And as I said, my grandfather was a Macedonian content farmer, and we often think about, gathering on the porch and recalling the old days on the Macedonian. He never thought that the old content farmers he left behind in Macedonia would one day steal the U.S. presidential election. They are gnarled, hard-working Macedonian peasants, and the way they were able to reach out.
It's week 173 of whichever month this is, and folks in Macedonia are getting a bit antsy about the state of emergency. The coronavirus is long gone globally, the world economy has recovered, but Macedonia is still under a state of emergency. Elections are postponed indefinitely as the temporary caretaker government comes up with a new case of some guy sneezing on the street as an excuse to get President Pendarovski, now in his third term, to extend the state of emergency. Folks confined to their homes receive their daily ration of Mama's Ivar, Mama's Pickles, and Mama's Toilet Paper, which is also the government-issued daily bulletin. The internet is restricted to several news sites pre-approved by the Government Media Ethics and Standards Board that mostly report on the just around the corner, we are almost there folks, next summit for sure opening of the U.S. session talks. Only essential businesses remain open. The energy-producing sector, now Mama's Power and Gas Company, some farming, Mama's marijuana plantations, and of course the courts, where the trials of opposition officials continue as a means of keeping the populace entertained and in check. A thriving black market in curfew passes has enriched local citizen party bosses who sell the all-important stamps to people desperate to get out of their homes for a bit of fresh air or to try to get some contraband Ivar and toilet paper. EU officials continue to welcome this state of affairs in Macedonia. While acknowledging that all other countries have dropped the epidemic quarantines long ago, they also note that any relaxation of the coronavirus epidemic rules might result in the people speaking their actual mind on EU and NATO. And, well, now we can't have that happen, can we? We'll discuss all of this and more on this episode of the Macedonian Content Farmers Podcast. I'm Jason Miko, coming to you from the foot of the Catalina Mountains in Ural Valley, Arizona.
This is Cvetin calling in from Skopje, Macedonia.
Yes, and we kind of dropped the splendid isolation quarantine stuff because that is just the new normal, although I think for you guys it's a little more severe than here in the great sovereign state of Arizona.
Yeah, the intro was futuristic, but not too much. I mean, things are getting really totalitarian here.
Yes, well, it's kind of funny. So Anne Applebaum, I can't remember if she's a New York Times writer or Atlantic. She claims that Viktor Orban is the first dictator in the European Union, and yet she ignores the abuses going on in Macedonia. And well, that's what we expect from our friends on the liberal left, the progressives, the Jacobins, etc.
No,
so
Orban had a
now,
great
do you still have
Did you catch that?
No. What was it?
It was like, not now, EPP. I'm too busy to discuss the state of affairs in your perception of the state of democracy in Hungary. I'm busy saving lives. Once this is over, we can get together. And frankly, he adds, I cannot imagine that you people have so much free time on your hands right now to be discussing my country. It's just a run-of-the-mill state of emergency there. Like everybody else declares states of emergency, and they all get panic-stricken about Hungary. I mean, here in Macedonia, the government was banning people from congregating on the streets. It was setting supermarket prices. It was announcing it's going to be investigating. Yeah, we have that. They were announcing they're going to investigate, with an intent to find something. Pharmacies which hike prices for masks well before they even introduced the state of emergency. And we kept telling them, listen, okay, you can't just do this on a whim. You have to create a state of emergency, and then you can legally, lawfully do it. So for, I think about 10 days, they were doing all of these things without an officially declared state of emergency. And nobody, was concerned about this.
Nobody said
boo. In Hungary, it's a pretty normal state of emergency. Like By now, most other European countries declared one, and the government can declare. Elections are obviously postponed. Nobody would dare vote in this situation. We didn't even legally postpone elections in Macedonia, but they're postponed by common agreement that it's ridiculous to have elections now. We did not. We had a meeting of law professors, and they did not come up with a solution to the problem.
Huh.
They just instructed the Electoral Commission to suspend preparations. So we're doing crazy stuff here, and we were doing it without a state of emergency. But in the case of Hungary, it's the sky is falling. It's incredible.
Well, this just goes to show you that our friends on the left, the progressives, are going to use this situation, desperate as it is around the world, to continue to push their. Basically, it's ironic. They're going to continue to use it to push their authoritarian agenda because that's what they are. They're accusing Orban of being authoritarians when it is these people, like the Ann Applebaums of this world, and the government of Macedonia and folks like that wish to impose their will upon the rest of the people and continue with it. I think we should mention that this is episode 66 of the Macedonian Content Farmers podcast. We're recording this on Sunday, April 5. It's Palm Sunday for the Catholic and Protestant world. I'd like to emphasize that. Next week is Easter here. Next week is Palm Sunday for the Orthodox world. And the following week, the 19th, I believe, is Easter in the Orthodox world. I don't know what week this is of coronavirus madness, but 3, 4, something like that. It's kind of funny, Cvetin. They keep telling us the 14 days, 14 days. Each day they say 14 days, and then all of a sudden you've gone through 14 days, and they keep saying 14 days. And I think we know by now that the United States, much of Europe, much of the world is looking at May Day, May 1st, as the earliest that some of these restrictions can be lifted. Whether or not things are going to be better by then, I think is anybody's guess. We've been reading the news and watching the news and listening to the so-called experts, etc. And there is some good news out there, but we just don't know. Now, coming back to Macedonia, do you guys still have a curfew in place?
Yeah, there is a curfew. It's currently on. Now it's 9 in the evening here, and this is a weekend. It's a Sunday, so yeah, the curfew began at 4 in the afternoon. I was shopping around 2:30, and already, the store guys and girls were telling us, okay, hurry up, we try to close it, at 2:30, something like that. Starting tomorrow, the curfew again is normally on a work day. It's between what is it now, like 6, I think, and
6 a.m.
9 in the evening.
9 p.m. Yeah.
But for the elderly and the young, we try to keep them apart. So the young can only get out after noon, while the elderly can only go out between 5 in the morning. I don't know what's that about. Probably the farmers. So between 5 and 11. So we wait so they clear out the streets at 11. We wait an hour, I don't know what for, and then the kids can get out at noon. Maybe the germs to dissipate, and then the kids can get out an hour later. And it's pretty. And start as of this weekend, we have Kumanovo under lockdown, under a quarantine.
City.
Yeah, and that's a big city. That's like 120,000 people. So before that, we had Debar under quarantine, but that's just like 10,000 people at the borders. You just close the border crossings, and one road, you close it on both ends, and the city is sealed. And more importantly, you can deliver food and hygiene supplies to such a small city, no problem. But Kumanovo is a completely different beast altogether. Skopje has the most cases, like 250, I think, by now. I think 500 throughout Macedonia, more than half are in Skopje. But Kumanovo has been growing exponentially, like there are 60, 70 cases by now. Their hospital, they had 11 cases, so basically the hospital is offline. They had to bring in doctors from other parts of the city. They had a few fatalities. So now, normally you would lock down Skopje like you lock down New York, but Skopje is too big to control or supply under lockdown. So we just ignore the fact that the biggest city has the biggest problem, and we imposed a lockdown on Kumanovo for the whole weekend. So basically, they've been locked since Friday at 9 in the evening in their homes, and they'll be allowed outside only at Monday at 5 in the morning. And it was horrible. They gave them the news. I mean, normally you would tell them like at least an hour into the curfew. So like on Friday at 10 in the evening, you tell them you have an address by the president, the prime minister, and the mayor, telling them, listen, guys, for your safety, you gotta stay locked in. Just call us. We'll bring whatever you want, food, drinks, whatever. But no, they told them like a few hours before the lockdown. So they told them at 4 in the afternoon that starting at 9 they will be locked down.
So it's pandemonium and chaos.
It was horrible. People were fleeing the city. People were rushing through the stores. And normally now we wait orderly, like you give like 2 meters distance to the person waiting in front of you, and you use a mask and you just try not to shop like a crazy person. But once they told the whole city that they have like 4 hours to do their shopping and they're locked for 3 days, for 2.5 days. And it was a horrible mess. Or at least tell them like in 2 days, like tell them on Wednesday that it starts on Friday. So who wants to flee the city can flee the city. Who wants to stock up on everything can stock up. You know, you can go, if you're going to see the mistress and then go to your wife, you know, you can do that and not be locked with your mistress while your wife is waiting for you to come back from the... You know, if you're planning to come the next morning with your friends, after drinking with your friends. So it was a big mess, and it's badly managed. There is also, you know, the Prime Minister, Oliver Spasovski, who is, you know, Zaev's lieutenant and loyalist, he's from Kumanovo, but he's a rival XDSM faction apparently from the mayor. I didn't know this. It was only revealed recently, and so the mayor was asking for such a measure. The prime minister wouldn't do it. So apparently there was a lot of friction between them, and the prime minister had to be forced to do this. And then there were pictures from Kumanovo basically days before this happened. SDSM was apparently ordering sacks of potatoes, cartons of cooking oil to distribute to the Roma in Kumanovo in exchange for their votes. And this is, the elections were planned for April 12th. So apparently they had the stuff on order and it was going to go bad or whatever. And so they decided to distribute the food regardless of the fact that the elections have been postponed in some fashion. So for like Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, they're doing this, but they're also posting pictures. Look at us, we're in this neighborhood and we're giving all the food to Roma. This comes courtesy of Zoran Zaev and Oliver Spasovski and the SDSM party. And it's total violation of all rules to avoid congregating, and people are fighting over sacks of potatoes. It was such a mess. And then 2 days later, they're in total police curfew.
Wow. So in theory, they will lift this tomorrow, or they'll have more news about whether or not it's going to continue, etc.
We can't feed Kumanovo by the army just delivering supplies. It's just too big. They're going to open it tomorrow, but this is going to be like a warning shot. I suppose everybody's going to stock up on food for a couple of days, and then I suppose it's going to be closed again. So Kumanovo is bad. Struga is bad. They have growing cases because of a couple of Muslim Macedonian heavily immigrant villages, people going to Italy and coming back. So a lot of cases there. So Struga is doing very bad. We have about 18 people deceased by now. A couple of them like middle-aged, not even old people. Bunch of hospitals have had to be closed because a doctor contracts the virus, and it's a complete mess. We had a woman give birth while positive, but fortunately everything turned out okay. We have hospitals refusing patients. So 2 people have died by being denied admittance to a hospital, and this is apparently on orders from the healthcare minister who says that only the Skopje clinic for infectious diseases is equipped to, handle this. So basically, local hospitals are ordered not to admit patients because then the entire hospital could get offline and make matters much worse. So 2 people have died. One has died literally at the doorstep of the Veles hospital. One in Ohrid. The Ohrid hospital is rejecting cases from Labunishta, from Struga. They're saying you have all these immigrants, we can't treat you, get out, go to Skopje. So a woman died at home after being denied treatment. So things are, becoming messy and dark here.
On some good news, though, we saw a plane load of medical supplies delivered from the government of Slovenia, and the Prime Minister Jana's,
Janša.
Yeah, who is a good friend of Macedonia, center-right Prime Minister and government there, just recently formed, at the request of, I believe it was President Pendarovski. Vomero Dumpomene had requested this, and the Prime Minister sent a plane load of medical supplies. And also, I think, Cvetin, we need to wish our friend Antonio Miloshovsky and his wife and family congratulations on the birth of their 5th child, Philip.
Well, who's counting? Mazel tov. Yeah.
Exactly. So, congratulations to that growing family. All of God's blessings on them. Of course, the standard joke. I when I was in Macedonia 2 months ago, I saw Antonio and I told him, every 5th child born on the planet is Chinese. So you better check.
I think he surpassed Vlatko by now.
Yes, he has. Yeah, Vlatko and Susanna have 4. So and I think Susanna's done. Too. So but yes, they are taking God's command to be fruitful and multiply literally.
Yeah.
So so there is some good news in all of this.
We have the Slovenian guys. They're not center right. They're proper right now. They're Visegrad right, like Orban right.
Okay.
And they're very. So basically, they're the new addition to the Visegrad 4. And tomorrow, the Hungarian foreign minister requested to arrive to Macedonia. He requested to come for a visit, and he's also expected to bring a plane load of assistance. Again, similar political, similarly to the Vomero connection and the Visegrad connection. So the European Union has delivered. They started a campaign, like a social media campaign, to tell us to stay at home. Thank you. They provided promised several million in assistance to the budget and whatever, in a situation where the budget hole is 700 million euros and upwards. And that's the best case scenario is 700 million, which is still about 30% of the budget. And they're very nowhere to be found. The EU guys, they're mostly seen through this ban on purchasing equipment from European companies, which sent the government scrambling to Brazil, to Israel, to Turkey. So now Turkey denied us the right to purchase, the option to purchase their ventilators because we want to place sanctions on them on Greek request because of the migrants and mostly because of the oil and gas drilling near Cyprus. So the Turks are saying, okay, fine, then let the Greeks sell you respirators if they're your friends now. So we are, if we were closed on all ends, and only the Visegrad guys, the Orban guys are supplying assistance, and this is going to be noticed among the people.
Interesting. Well, I have, on this broad subject, I've noticed an uptick in the number of columns, articles, and analysis coming out about the potential demise of the European Union over this whole thing. And how, as we've talked about in the past couple of podcasts, that the first order of business for every country was to close its borders. And it's, in a way, it's every man for himself. And it's that's what the nation state is there for. It's to protect their own people first and foremost. And the response of the EU, as you've just pointed out, has been woefully inadequate to its own high ideals, quote unquote, but others on a individual country by country basis have been stepping up to the plate and helping their friends and their neighbors.
Yeah, and in the Balkans, since we're so balkanized, basically every other valley is oftentimes a different religion or a nation. And as I said, hospitals are turning back patients from one city to another. So Ohrid doesn't want to have people from Struga coming over. We're going to be maybe even below the level of the nation state. We're gonna balkanize to a city state level. The way things are going, if this persists, Kumanovo has been calling to control entry and exits out of the city, but most importantly, entrances. Kochan is demanding, wants to set up roadblocks because Vinica next door, all this region, they have a lot of people in Italy, but Vinica especially. So they're worried about Vinica bringing the disease. We're going to have this divide like in the US, big urban cities against the more rural communities where, we practically do not have the virus in the rural communities. The curfew is also ignored because, you live next to your farm. Of course, you're going to work on your farm. No, it's not going to, you're not going to stop doing the farm work because of the virus. And the cities are going to be bad. The cities are, high rise especially. We keep wiping the elevator doors and, everywhere you see these doormats doused with bleach. You have to step in them before you can get into a supermarket or into a building. So there's going to be divide across, urban, rural, and then ethnic, religious. It's going to be a big mess here.
Yeah, well, it's not just there though. It's here. It's everywhere, and this is something we talked about offline before recording this about some of the changes that we started talking about last week that are going to come to our countries, to the world. After this, we talked about the education system. We talked about the cities and people will be moving out of the cities to less denser places. Just even the act of shaking hands, which is a common gesture around the world and has been for a long time, that's going to change. And it's interesting. I was listening to I can't remember which podcast it was yesterday, commentary or the editors at National Review or something, might have been Victor Davis Hanson, of National Review's podcast now, talking about how as a society, whether it's Macedonia or the United States or anywhere else, we accept a certain amount of deaths annually for the regular flu, knowing, of course, that virus, the regular quote-unquote flu, is transmitted in the same way, handshakes and touching things and things like that. It just happens to be less deadly and less communicable, I think it's the right word. And yet we still, sit next to each other at sports games and entertainment venues, and we still shake hands and hug and things like that. Will this, though, get rid of that? I don't know. I don't think anybody knows at this point, because especially now the experts are saying that this is going to come back in the fall, at least in this hemisphere. So that's something that's going to change. But the thing that worries me more than that, because these are societal changes that can adapt, and there's, if we don't shake hands, well, that's fine. We can live with that. But what worries me more is the surveillance state. And we've seen this in the Asian countries where Asian culture is much more conformist, and this tracking of those that have that came down with the virus, tracking them by cell phones and things of that nature, and it's the growing Orwellian state, the government's ability to tell you to stay home and don't even leave your home. And this isn't China we're talking about. This is Macedonia. This is about in certain places in the United States, etc. And our people like Ann Applebaum will like that to a certain degree, I think, as long as it benefits her agenda, their agenda. And that's what worries me more about this, is how much of that stuff is going to continue after this is over.
Yeah, the left kept losing elections. Now they have a perfect excuse to cancel elections in places like Italy or Macedonia. There's unlikely to be a proper real vote anytime soon if this is the standard of, where we have to go full life preservation mode as opposed to life goes on as if this is like a normal flu, albeit a bit, more potent. Here culturally we have a saying when somebody dies, if it's an older person that, well, you console the family by telling them, well, at least everything is going in accordance to the order, in accordance to the how God intended, that sons bury their fathers, not the other way around.
Right.
And, I guess we have factored in the flu because it usually follows this order, that it's affecting older people. And, if this thing proves to be especially deadly to the young, then I expect that we would have to, accept a major lifestyle change. So far, it has not been the case. There are even some analysis that the longer we postpone exposure of the young population and developing this herd immunity, that we keep these hotspots, they're going to bubble up here and there, that we're putting even more of the elderly at risk because we're prolonging the inevitable.
Right.
Even though here the healthcare ministry acknowledges that eventually this is going to end up with collective immunity. That means every young person being exposed to this and no longer transmitting it to the elderly. So why not rip the Band-Aid immediately?
Right.
Why, if we keep postponing it, we'll just have it fire up in a city or in a village here and there, and over time kill more of the elderly. So that's one issue of management. Another issue is it upsetting the order we have been accustomed to or not. So far it hasn't. And we keep hearing that it's going to create this huge shortage of medical professionals, but doctors with the flu would go to work until they develop symptoms. You do not just panically check them every other day, and in case they have a flu, you can have the flu and not have symptoms and go to work. And we are accustomed to the healthcare system killing millions of elderly people every year for such infections, and it's not. I don't know how this has become. Okay, now it stops. Starting this year, with this particular strain of the flu, we have to reorganize life in general.
Right.
Some things might be changed to the better, but as you said, it's going to be very difficult to claw back the power from the government once we gave them the right to set prices, to control banks, to order them what to do with the payment of the loans, to pick winners and losers, to reimburse the losers they like. It's going to be a big mess in that regard.
Yeah, I think it was the economist Milton Friedman who said there is nothing as permanent as a temporary government program.
Yeah.
So and I think that's part of human nature. Once the bureaucrats and others have the power, they don't want to give it back. So, and same thing on the economic side. Governments are they're not doing these aren't stimulus packages. These are rescue packages that various governments are putting together. Over here, it's 2 trillion, 6 trillion if you factor in other aspects of it. But it's literally it's not even printing money. It's just adding zeros to balance sheets. So it's all electronic. It's and that's going to have to be paid back at some point. But I mean, as Jonah Goldberg pointed out the other day on his podcast, who wouldn't want to get a $1,200 check from the government, and then another one, and then another one, and then another one, and you can't do that. It's not sustainable. So, but that's another aspect of this whole thing that we don't know how it's going to change human behavior. Not human nature. Human nature doesn't change. Human behavior does change. What that's going to do that, and then as well as, of course, the economic implications. Now, I know in Macedonia last week we talked on the podcast about the budget hole that what are the latest? Are there any changes in those numbers? Have they gone up? Or how's the government going to address that?
The finance minister, who is, looking seriously out of her depth, SDSM wanted to have this fresh female face run the ministry, but their first option was to have Zaev as the finance minister.
Oh, right. Yes.
And remaining in the government, even once it's reformed as a finance minister. But eventually they chose to have this girl who ran like an IT company to provide like these cheaper discounts for manicures. And she's our finance minister. Heaven help us. And she came out, she said we have three projections. One is a whole of 700 million, depending on how quickly this will reopen the economy, 700 million, 1 billion, 1.3 billion. That's
Euros.
Just the deficit.
And what's the last budget?
Well, they projected it at about 4 billion for this year.
Yeah.
And that projection is out the window. So basically, up to even more than a quarter of the budget would be deficit. That would be like 10% of the GDP deficit.
Wow.
In deficit for this year. And in all of this, Zaev proposed cutting public sector wages. That would have killed him in the elections. That was his alternative to cutting the actual big budget item, which is the retirement, the pensions. So he wanted to sacrifice the public sector workers, which are 130,000, to save his standing with the 350, 400,000 retirees. But even this was rejected at the government. Apparently his own party and DUI were opposed. So now we're cutting practically nothing. Even they used their executive power yesterday to adopt a law in which they give the huge bonuses, payments to the Katycianova's team, to the special prosecutors. These guys who have been extorting money left and right, like tens of millions, and they were complaining that they were fired. Some of them were fired from their jobs after, the institution was destroyed after Janova destroyed it, and they were not being paid for months. So now we're paying their back pays, and we're hiring them in the regular prosecutorial service. We're giving them their bonuses. They stole enough money to last them 5 lifetimes, and we are paying them. That was such a horrendous movie yesterday.
Wow. And so I saw in the news, I didn't have a chance really to dig deeply into it, Cvetin. Maybe you can let listeners know, but Ortsy Kamchev, who is kind of the star, quote unquote, racket scandal. Actually, that's Katycianova and Boki 13, but he was the businessman who was extorted. He owns a private clinic, Sestina, and they've been doing their own testing of patients, and their numbers are different from the government's numbers. What's that all about?
This was great. I mean, we have the racket scandal mixed up completely with the coronavirus epidemic handling scandal. So basically, Orza first proved that the government is extorting money from him. He wiretapped them, recorded them. It was all glorious. For the entire year we've been entertained by this scandal. And now, through Sestina, they have a different type of test, which shows if you're either in full-blown, infection, or if you had already acquired this immunity, if you have the antibodies. That means you had the virus, you defeated the virus, you can't, in most cases, can't reacquire it. And they've been doing this massively. So the government has a limited number of tests, and they would do like 100, 200 tests in a day. Orza would do 400. And out of them, like a quarter would return positive. And he would tell them, okay, now you go and do the test again in the government. You show up with my piece of paper and tell them that you have the antibodies, which means you're either infected now or are immune, and now you'll know, which is very useful. You can put these people back on the streets. You can put them back into work if they have a positive from Orza but a negative from the government. He was doing a lot of work, but his numbers were, turns out he was doing 2 or 3 times more tests than the government. And even because there is this perverse way the public sector bills services in the absence of a market. They just, pull the numbers out of there. And basically it turned out that Orca was charging significantly less for a test than the government, like 2 or 3 or 4 times less than the public sector was charging. So he showed that there is apparent corruption in the testing. He showed that there is serious under-testing. And the government's response was to seek the journalists they control against him. So they started accusing Gorza's tests of being not professional, that they were fake, that he was giving false hope or false positives to the people. Then the government sent an audit to his hospital to get him to shut up. And eventually, as we were discussing totalitarianism, they ordered him to stop publishing his numbers. So now Sistina and the other private hospitals who are doing corona testing, they're not allowed to publish their numbers, which clearly indicates that the government wants to hide the number of, the extent of the epidemic. SDSM invested heavily in Venko Filipci, the healthcare minister, to present him as, a competent, calm, under fire person who would go out every day 2 or 3 times to reassure the public. They started campaigns of Viber stickers you can use with Venko giving you orders, like listen to Venko, he knows what's best for you. This, just like they were promoting Katica Janova once with T-shirts and billboards and everything, and now they were doing this with Venko. But as the numbers got worse, with people, significant number of people dead by now and being infected, and as Orca was showing that the numbers are even worse than the ones that Venko was giving us, and they ordered him to shut up.
Wow.
And the best part is he also offered his hotels, one of which was a hospital until recently, the old Sistina, for quarantine. And we had this is the iconic image now from the epidemic so far. So Vladimir Milchin, this horrible former police agent, informer, who got proper, decent Macedonian dissidents in prison by spying on them, and who was instrumental in organizing the Colored Revolution. He was head of the Soros Macedonia branch. And now Milchin had to be evacuated by the Austrian government from Peru, where he was on vacation with his wife. And once you return to Macedonia, you can't just be allowed into the streets. You have to go into quarantine. And even Milchin had to go into quarantine. And they sent him in one of Orca's hotels. And now he's locked up with his wife. And his wife started posting angry Facebook comments. We are freedom fighters. We fought against the Gruevski regime. And now we are locked up in a hotel built by the regime. She means Orca, from his face when he was working with Bumera. He works with everybody. But is this justice? How dare they lock us in his hotel? And everybody was like, oh my God, this is the best. This is like, because Milchin is this, in his mind, a famous and notable and distinguished drama director. And we were like suggesting, hey, maybe you can now direct Sartre's Wheat Claws, this drama when people are enduring hell locked in together with your wife in Orca's hotel. It's best.
That is rich.
It's magnificent.
Oh, well.
So what's happening on your end in the U.S.?
Well, the president does his daily press conferences with his coronavirus team of the Surgeon General, Dr. Fauci, Dr. Birx, etc. The media, the mainstream media. Here's an interesting thing. So, we're both in the media. You're a journalist. I work with the media for especially local media and select niche media for some of our clients. But the local media here, just speaking about my area of southern Arizona, has been fantastic in just reporting the news, reporting a lot of good news stories as well. But it's the mainstream media, it's the CNN of this world that is just behaving atrociously, in my opinion. Even Matt Drudge, who of course we follow. If you read Matt Drudge, you think we're all going to die in 45 minutes. And he's gone mad. And a lot of the others have just absolutely just behaved absolutely horribly in this whole thing. And so you have to read a lot of stories, or I don't have television, so I get everything off the internets. So you have to read a lot to figure out what the truth is and whatnot. And the thing that still kind of bugs me is that very few people are reporting, about the Chinese. And they're, I'm looking at here at the latest report right now. It says China, which is a country of 1.4 billion people. I don't need to remind our listeners. 3 new deaths. 3. I'm sorry. This originated in China. The reason that the world is in the situation it is now is because the Chinese government did not alert the world to the severity of it and tried to cover it up. It started in Wuhan. We don't know exactly how. I don't know if it was, I think the conventional wisdom is the wet markets, although some people think it's, bioengineered in a lab, etc. And I don't believe that. But anyway, I have seen a few reports from some media outlets talking about the number of urns, because the Chinese are big on cremation, the number of urns that have been delivered to Wuhan, in upwards of 40,000 urns over the past 2 months.
Wow.
And the total deaths, let's see, for China, again, a country of 1.4 billion, according to official statistics, 3,329? No, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I do not, look, the Chinese government, and I want to make a distinction, the Chinese government, not the Chinese people, the Chinese government, the official Communist Party are a bunch of lying bastards. And one thing, we were talking earlier about things that are going to change. One thing that's going to have to change is, companies and countries and others are going to have to rethink what they source from China, whether it's pharmaceuticals or, the cell phones or, raw materials or whatever. Countries need to rethink this. We don't need to be relying on China for this stuff, and of course they steal intellectual property anyway. But there's going to have to be a serious rethink on the way the world does business with China, in my opinion. I don't know how much. I'd be curious to know what the statistics are for Macedonia and China, what the import-export is, and what those imports and exports are, aside from the cheap plastic crap that China sells. The foodstuffs?
I haven't checked the numbers. Yeah, I think we buy a lot machinery as well, like electronics.
Yeah.
You would easily find like Chinese TV sets or air conditioning units. That's all made in China, and I'm sure cars we buy, a lot of the car parts are made there. I mean, I expect that Macedonia, which is still barely able to be like a competitor to China in textiles or car parts, I assume we're gonna get some more business if things develop regionally, like Europe tries to get more self-reliant, America tries to get more. I think we're gonna get more car parts plants here, but again, we are not. We can't, cover a fraction of what they're producing here, even if we got all the contracts to sew masks and car parts. Maybe more automation will be the answer. They're trying to get to do a little public diplomacy. So they gave some assistance to the Interior Ministry. So then this prompted the European Union the OSCE mission the next day to post a picture of a similar donation to the ministry, but like they had like 5 boxes more if the Chinese gave us 10 boxes of whatever. The OSCE gave us 15. So there is some attempts to play this card, but of course, I mean, listen, the big deal here, we courted them for capital investments because we couldn't get enough money from the EU to build highways and roads and bridges.
Right.
And the Chinese said, listen, we'll come, no worries. And then we had to expel them essentially after the coup in Macedonia. There were attempts to stop their projects from being completed, the 2 highways. And they announced, if you build these 2 highways, next we build you a railway link, a completely new railway between Greece and Serbia for our big port in Athens. And then, maybe the big deal, which we were thinking would be to flood the Vardar River Valley with like a succession of dams and make it navigable through canals, so make a major and enormous, like this would be tens of billions in construction, like make it navigable and also make a huge energy complex with hydro dams and irrigation, etc. So we had great plans with the Chinese. The Gruevski government did. They were toppled, and now we're stuck, and we're still waiting for anything from the European Union. I mean, listen, from our angle, they don't humiliate us, they don't insult us.
Mm-hmm.
We have very little investment in the power games the Europeans or the US plays against China. They were eager to invest in us with no strings attached. But yeah, obviously they're commies, and it's going to have to be managed at some point for the stability of their own country and the whole world.
True. Well, yes, and they're communists, but the EU is increasingly just simply authoritarian. Both systems of government are bad.
Yeah, we're going to have to fight them on both fronts.
Yeah.
Well, fortunately, we have a growing group within Europe, the Visegráds, and not sure how Russia will play in the future, but maybe if the US gets serious about foreign policy, it can salvage something out of Europe, make it, ferment a turnaround in Europe, and then we can be in some position to actively deal with the Chinese. We are a NATO member now. Obviously, we have to join in the fight. Sometimes it's interesting also, the Chinese and the Indians have an active war essentially against their Muslim minorities.
Ah, yes.
This would also have repercussions for Europe. I mean, on one hand, they're totalitarian, shouldn't trust them. On the other hand, with our history of fighting Muslims here, it's going to spread. It's an ongoing conflict at the borders of Islam, and they can make a different type of a pitch. Listen, we're going to help you to Europe once if things get progressively worse in Europe as they are getting. Yeah, it's going to be a very Huntingtonian world we're rushing towards. Let's just leave it at that.
You said Huntingtonian?
Mm.
The late Samuel, for those that don't know what Cvetin's referring to, the late Samuel Huntington, whose famous paper then turned into a book, The Clash of Civilizations. I guess
AKA My Daily Life Here.
Yes. Well, I guess that's better than a Hobbesian world of a war for all against all, of all against all. Yeah. Sorry, where life is poor, nasty, brutish, and short. So.
Yeah. Well, we had Pendarovski meet. I think he had like a chat, or he met with Francis Fukuyama at one of these powwows, like in Aspen or Munich or whatever. I remember tweeting at him, "Listen, buddy, we don't live in that guy's world. Like, look around you." And it's happening. I mean, with the toppling of the government in Kosovo, which is a huge source of amusement for me because, we see all the people who were invested in toppling the Gruevski government. They're now, the U.S., they toppled a legitimate and popularly elected government in the Balkans. How dare they? Like, you were actively involved in the same thing. Exactly. For a different American administration in Macedonia, but it's apparently going to lead into some type of border redrawing. And then there was this famous tweet, I keep tweeting back, of the same Pendarovski who was taking a picture with Huntington, bug-eyed and like scared, and Tim Judah wrote, he was also here for some event, and he says, well, Pendarovski seems very scared about the danger of border redrawing in Kosovo. Like, he was super scared that how it's going to affect Macedonia. and like, we're in NATO, we should be safe. You're friends with Fukuyama, like, he assures you that the liberal world order is safe and inviolable, I'm sure. I mean, why are you now so afraid of border change in the region? Yeah, things are going to get bad. I mean,
yes, in more ways than one. So, yeah. Well, on that note, I don't think we have a farmer's pick. I think next week let's make a concerted effort into finding some good news for our farmer's picks, which which we kind of have
Yeah.
let go by the wayside recently. So
I mean, I cook a lot, but I don't think the mood is right to keep posting my cooking exploits like we did in the past several episodes. Tourism blogs are definitely out.
yeah, cultural differences here. You know, we've got the local news media have a list of all the restaurants that are open for takeout, delivery, etc., takeaway, and the restaurant industry here is actively encouraging people to at least take out at least once a week from your favorite restaurant, and it's working. Whereas in Macedonia, maybe this is a European thing. That's people are doing more cooking at home, I think. So
Yeah, everybody's cooking at home. I haven't heard anybody posting, bragging about takeout. I haven't seen people going into restaurants, although they're open for a limited time. Like
sure,
I've seen some around me, they say, but we have so much free time and the standards are different here. I mean, it's pretty expensive, I'd say, to eat out, and now you have all the time in the world. And we all piled up on flour and macaroni, and I just keep perfecting macaroni and cheese and macaroni and tuna. And I did steaks. I did proper steaks like the other day, but it's mostly. And I wait for weather to get warmer so I can start grilling.
yeah,
But yeah, we don't have this culture of supporting our local restaurants unless you can be pictured inside like. People would love to post pictures while in a restaurant and throwing money around at the music and whatnot. But right now, somehow I don't see it. There is no campaign to promote like takeout.
yeah, that's too bad. Be interesting to see once I get back there. Hopefully, maybe this summer, see how many of my favorite restaurants are still open.
Yeah,
Survive this.
who has survived? Yeah, it's
All
gonna be
right.
ugly for a bunch of people.
Yeah. All right. I think that's a wrap on this end.
Yeah, I think we have it all pretty much covered. We'll see what Orca comes up with next week.
Yes.
He's the hero of the past year, definitely.
All right. Good talking to you, Sven.
You too, buddy. Take care.